The Silent Vanguard. In the shadows, he saved lives.
In the Light, He's the Enemy, Part 1. The Unsung Hero, Chapter 1. The Last Mission. Present, 2 days before the collapse. Rain hammered the steel rooftops of Hong Kong's harbor district, drowning the sound of Elias Gray's footsteps. The city was alive in its usual chaos. Glowing billboards, honking cars, hurried pedestrians, all unaware that their lives balanced on the edge of annihilation.
Somewhere beneath the glow of neon and stormy clouds, a bioweapon slept, cradled in the cold embrace of a shipping container. Elias's mission was clear: disable the weapon, disappear, and leave no trace. But tonight, clarity was a luxury he couldn't afford. His earpiece crackled. "Target in sight?" whispered the voice of his handler. Cold. Detached. As always. Elias's jaw tightened. He adjusted his gloves and peered through the cracked lens of his night vision goggles. "Container 4578, East Quadrant. There are guards. 7, armed." "Proceed," came the reply. He didn't wait for further instructions. Instructions were for amateurs. Elias had spent the last decade becoming a ghost, a shadow who danced between the cracks of disaster and salvation. And yet, tonight felt different. The city buzzed in his bones, an electric hum that whispered one terrible truth: they're watching you. Flashback, 6 months ago. "Why do you do this, Elias?" Hale's voice was calm, his sharp, tailored suit exuding authority. Behind him, a wall of screens glowed with maps, satellite feeds, and encrypted data streams. Hale was the voice of the collective, the man who gave Elias purpose, or so Elias thought. "Why do I do this?" Elias leaned back in his chair, his smile sardonic. "For the fame, for the glory, for the free therapy sessions after I've dodged my 12th bullet." Hale's lips twitched. Was that almost a smile? "You're deflecting. It's anonymity, isn't it? The ability to save lives without anyone knowing." Elias stiffened. Hale always saw through him. Always. "Your work matters because it's silent," Hale continued. "You're the vanguard, Elias. A shield that doesn't seek recognition. But remember, the moment you step into the light, the shield becomes the sword, and swords are always targeted." Present. The mission. Elias crouched behind a stack of metal barrels, rain dripping from his hood. The guards were pacing, their voices muffled by the storm. The bioweapon container loomed 20 feet ahead, locked, its keypad glowing faintly in the dim light. One wrong move and the contents of that container would vaporize half the city. He inhaled slowly, counting his breaths. His fingers grazed the hilt of the blade strapped to his thigh. Guns were too loud for this kind of operation. Move. Silence. Strike. In 3 fluid motions, Elias disarmed the first guard, his blade slicing through the air with precision. The man dropped without a sound. Another guard turned, but Elias was faster, slamming him into the steel wall before he could call for backup. Shadows became his allies, rain masking his steps as he melted through the guards like a phantom. 5 down, 2 to go. Flashback, 2 years ago. "Ever feel like they don't trust you?" Cassandra asked, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. Elias stared at her, unsure how to answer. Cassandra had been his only real friend in the collective, a rare constant in a world of faceless orders and nameless sacrifices. "What are you getting at?" She leaned in, her voice lowering. "Hale. The missions. The silence. Ever wonder if we're just pawns on a board we can't see?" Elias shrugged, feigning indifference. "We're saving lives. Isn't that enough?" Cassandra's eyes hardened. "Not if it means we lose ours in the process." Present. The final lock. Elias wiped rain from his face as the last guard fell. His heart pounded as he approached the container, the keypad blinking a cold blue. His gloved fingers danced across the numbers, inputting the sequence Hale had given him. "Access denied." Elias froze. No, that couldn't be right. He tried again, his fingers moving faster this time. Access denied. His earpiece crackled. "Elias, status?" He hesitated. "The code isn't working." A pause. Then Hale's voice, smooth and infuriatingly calm. "That's impossible. You were given the correct sequence." Elias felt it then, a cold realization creeping down his spine. He wasn't meant to succeed tonight. This wasn't a mission, it was a trap. Footsteps echoed behind him. He spun, blade ready, but it was too late. A figure stepped out of the shadows, their face obscured by a mask. A gun pointed directly at his chest. "Elias Gray," the figure said, their voice distorted. "The collective sends its regards." Flashback. 10 years ago. Run! His mother's voice, desperate and hoarse, echoed in his ears. Don't look back. He was 17, barefoot and bleeding. His father's body sprawled on the living room floor. Smoke filled the air and the sound of sirens grew louder. It was the night Elias Gray became a ghost. The night he stopped trusting anyone but himself. Present, the collapse. The explosion shattered the night, flames consuming the container. Elias hit the ground hard, his ears ringing, his vision blurred. He crawled to his feet, coughing, his body screaming in protest. The bioweapon was gone, but so was his cover. Above him, drones circled like vultures, their red lights scanning the wreckage. His earpiece crackled one last time. Hale's voice. "You've served your purpose, Elias. Goodbye." Elias staggered into the shadows, his mind racing. He was alone now, hunted, betrayed. But he wasn't finished. Not yet. Ending. The rain kept falling, washing the blood from his hands as he disappeared into the night. Somewhere Hale was watching. Somewhere, the collective was already rewriting the narrative, painting him as the enemy. Elias Gray, the man who saved lives in the shadows, was now a fugitive in the light. And for the first time, Elias felt truly alive. Chapter 2. Invisible by Design. Present, the city of ghosts. The van rattled down the uneven streets of the city, its headlights slicing through a thick haze of smog. Elias Gray's hands tightened on the steering wheel, every muscle in his body poised for action. But tonight, there was no mission, no weapons, no codes to break or enemies to eliminate. Tonight, he was invisible, just a delivery driver ferrying takeout orders to faceless customers. The neon lights of the city reflected off the cracked windshield, painting the dashboard in shades of electric blue and pink. Elias glanced at the insulated bag in the passenger seat, its faint aroma of fried noodles and curry reminding him of how ordinary this life was supposed to be. He liked the irony, the simplicity of it, the anonymity. No one ever looked twice at a delivery driver. It was the perfect cover. Flashback, 4 years ago, the recruitment. "Why you?" Hale had asked, his voice smooth and measured. He didn't sit behind a desk like most bureaucrats. Instead, he leaned against the edge of it, his piercing gaze fixed on Elias. "You've been invisible your whole life. Perfect for the job." Elias smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Flattery's not your strong suit, is it?" "It's not flattery," Hale replied. "It's fact. You've perfected the art of being unremarkable. No digital footprint, no lasting connections. You drift through life like a shadow." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And you think that makes me trustworthy?" "No," Hale said. "It makes you useful." Present, the dual life. Elias parked the van outside a nondescript apartment building. The rain had started again, a soft drizzle that turned the sidewalks into mirrors. He grabbed the delivery bag, slipped his hood over his head, and stepped into the night. His boots made no sound against the wet pavement. Years of training had made silence second nature. The customer was waiting at the door, a young woman in sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She didn't look at him as she handed over a crumpled bill. He didn't look at her as he mumbled, "Enjoy your meal," and walked away. Invisibility wasn't just his cover, it was his philosophy. People trusted what they didn't notice. They feared what they couldn't see. And Elias had spent years mastering the art of being both. Flashback, 2 years ago, the handler. Every good operative needs a routine, Cassandra had told him. She was sitting on the edge of his kitchen counter, sipping tea like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Something normal, something boring. That's how you stay sane." Elias had laughed, wiping gun oil from his hands. "You think delivering noodles to stoners at 2 a.m. is going to keep me sane?" "No," she admitted, "but it'll keep you safe. And if you're safe, you can keep saving people." She set her mug down and looked at him, her expression suddenly serious. "The collective isn't perfect, Elias, but it's better than the alternative." He'd nodded, not because he agreed, but because he wanted to believe she was right. Present, the drop-off. Elias returned to the van, tossing the empty delivery bag onto the seat. His phone buzzed. Another order. Another anonymous name and address. He swiped to accept and pulled back into the flow of traffic. The streets were quieter now, the city settling into its late-night rhythm. But Elias couldn't relax. He never could. At every intersection, he scanned the cars behind him, watching for patterns. At every stoplight, his eyes darted to the shadows, searching for movement. The collective had trained him well. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a delivery notification. Unknown number. Elias's pulse quickened. He glanced at the screen, hesitating for a moment before answering. "Gray," the voice on the other end said. It wasn't Hale. Too sharp. Too urgent. "What is it?" Elias kept his tone neutral, his grip on the wheel tightening. "There's a problem," the voice said. "Your next drop-off? It's not food." Flashback. 5 years ago. The lesson. "Always assume you're being watched," Hale had said during one of their first training sessions. They were standing on a rooftop, the city sprawling out below them like a living, breathing organism. Not by your enemies, by your allies. Elias had frowned. Paranoia doesn't sound like a healthy way to live. "It's not paranoia," Hale replied. "It's survival. People are predictable, Elias. They betray you for 2 reasons, ambition or fear. Your job is to stay one step ahead of both." Present. The trap. Elias parked the van in an empty alley, his mind racing. The address on his phone led to an industrial warehouse, its windows dark, its doors padlocked. But there were no security cameras, no delivery instructions, no sign of life. He opened the delivery bag and found what he'd been dreading, a manila envelope, sealed, unmarked. His earpiece buzzed. Hale's voice cut through the static, calm and infuriatingly composed. "Change of plans, Elias. You're making a delivery for us tonight." "What's in the envelope?" Elias asked, though he already knew he wouldn't get an answer. Hale's silence was his confirmation. Elias's jaw tightened. "I thought I was invisible." "You are," Hale said. "But sometimes, even shadows have to leave footprints." Ending. Elias stepped out of the van, the envelope tucked under his jacket. The warehouse loomed ahead, its silence deafening. He wasn't a delivery driver anymore. Not tonight. Tonight, he was the Vanguard. Chapter 3. A Shadow's Gratitude. Present. The letter. The envelope was plain. Cream-colored, unmarked, untraceable. It sat on Elias Gray's kitchen counter, staring at him like a ghost. He hadn't noticed it at first, just another object in the clutter of his unremarkable life. But now, as the silence of his apartment wrapped around him like a noose, it became impossible to ignore. He didn't open it right away. That wasn't how this worked. The collective's tokens always came with unspoken rules. Wait. Assess. Read between the lines. Elias picked it up, turning it over in his hands. No stamp. No return address. Only his name written in a script so impersonal it could have been done by a machine. E. Gray. He slipped a knife under the flap, careful not to tear the paper. The blade felt heavier than usual. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded with precision. He unfolded it slowly, the faint smell of ink and paper filling his senses. The words were sparse, typed in a stark, clinical font. To E. Gray. Your service during the Hong Kong incident was commendable. Lives were saved. Your contribution will not be forgotten. The Vanguard protects the silent. The collective sees all. The collective. Elias stared at the letter, his lips pressing into a thin line. No signature. No warmth. No human connection. Just words on a page, as cold and detached as the organization that had sent them. Gratitude, it seemed, was as impersonal as everything else in his life. Flashback. 2 days after Hong Kong. The explosion still echoed in his ears. The scent of burning metal clung to his clothes, refusing to fade no matter how many times he scrubbed his hands raw. Elias sat on the edge of a motel bed, staring at the flickering screen of a cheap TV. The news anchor's voice was steady, emotionless. Authorities have confirmed the explosion at the Hong Kong harbor was a result of a gas leak. No casualties have been reported. Officials are investigating a gas leak. That's what they were calling it. Elias felt his chest tighten. He should have been relieved. No casualties. The bioweapon neutralized. Mission accomplished. But there was no sense of victory, no relief, only silence. He reached for his phone, scrolling through the messages from the collective. The last one was a single line: "Evacuate immediately. Further communication unnecessary." Unnecessary. That word cut deeper than it should have. He was a tool, nothing more. He'd saved lives, prevented a catastrophe, and all he got was a message telling him to leave. Present, the apartment. Elias crumpled the letter in his fist, the paper folding into jagged edges. He wanted to throw it away, to let it join the pile of meaningless artifacts that littered his life. But he didn't. Instead, he unfolded it carefully, smoothing out the creases as if it were something fragile, something important. He didn't know why he kept these tokens. They weren't personal. They didn't carry the weight of a handshake, a word of thanks, or even a smile. But they were all he had. The collective didn't care about recognition. They didn't care about heroes. And yet they had sent this letter. Why? Was it meant to appease him? Remind him of his place? Or was it something else entirely? A subtle manipulation designed to keep him loyal? Flashback. 3 years ago, the first token. "Why send me this?" Elias had asked, holding up the silver coin. It was unmarked, save for the faint etching of an eye on one side. The weight of it felt strange in his palm, heavier than it should have been, as though it carried some unseen significance. Hale had smiled faintly, his hands folded behind his back. "Symbols matter, Elias, even to those who live in the shadows." "It's a coin," Elias said flatly. "I can't spend it, can't show it to anyone. So what's the point?" "The point," Hale replied, his tone calm but firm, "is that you'll keep it, and every time you look at it, you'll remember what it represents." Elias had scoffed, but he hadn't thrown the coin away. It sat in a drawer now, alongside a handful of other cryptic tokens, pins, cards, even a single bullet engraved with his initials. Useless objects, but he couldn't bring himself to part with them. Present, the letter, revisited. Elias folded the letter and slid it into the drawer beside the coin. His fingers brushed against the engraved bullet, its surface cold and smooth. He held it up to the light, the faint letters catching the dim glow of his desk lamp. E.g., he hated that it meant something to him. Hated that, despite everything, he still craved acknowledgement. The collective's gratitude was a paradox. It was never enough, yet it always kept him tethered. The tokens, the letters, the impersonal messages, they were reminders of his purpose. Of the lives he saved. Of the cost of remaining unseen. The decision. The drawer shut with a soft click. Elias stared at it for a moment before turning away. The city was quiet tonight, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. It never did. His phone buzzed on the counter. Another notification. Another mission. He didn't need to read it to know what it said. The details didn't matter. They never did. Elias slipped on his jacket, his mind already shifting into the cold, detached focus that his work demanded. The letter sat in the drawer, forgotten but not discarded. Gratitude was a shadow, fleeting, intangible. But it was enough to keep him moving. For now.